Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Ted. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of the Ted Manila Information Show, TMI Show for short. I'm, of course, Manila Chan. That right there, you already could probably guess, is Ted Rall. We are bringing you way too much information. Anything from news to politics to lifestyle, culture, fad diets, whatever the kids are up to, like the TikToks, the taboo stuff, maybe some occult stuff, if that's okay, Ted. And anything and everything. Everything goes. Anything goes. Because, you know, I think this is a true statement, Ted. You can never have too much information.
Well, you
Maybe.
could be washed away with information. You could be flooded, as the psychologists say. But basically, I agree with you. Knowledge is power. It's a cliche for a
Yes.
reason because it's true. The more you
Yes.
know, the better off you are, and the better decision making you can make. God, that was really boring to say, obviously, but that's true.
You sound like one of those old 1980s like NBC. The more you know. Dun, dun, dun.
The more you know you're being lied to.
Well, now that was 30 years ago. So if you guys are looking for a straight-laced button-down news program, this show is probably not for you. We're going to talk about stuff that you already know you want to hear more about, but then also some stuff that you didn't even know that you needed to know. And of course, Ted and I will have some laughs with you along the way because, let's face it, like this is whatever is floating around out there is garbage or depressing. And really all you can do is kind of laugh about what's happening because I don't know how much control or power any one of us have. So Ted and I will take you down that road live Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So please be sure to like and follow this show and subscribe. If you are in the Rumble chat, please scroll down there and hit that subscribe button. It's next to the little dollar sign because we are a fully independent. Yes, every dollar helps. We are a fully independent show. So let's start it right now.
And also, we need to. We're gonna have to get a stinger for this because we need that.
I know.
All right,
well,
we'll work on that. There's going to be a few bumps along the way as we, this is the first ever show. You're listening to the first 3 minutes of it, but we'll do that. We'll have all those little bells and whistles, worked out
Yes.
within the next few weeks, I would imagine.
We literally threw this show together in like 48 hours, really.
True. And it turned so far, it looks like it's going to be okay. I'll cross my fingers and other body parts here.
I think,
we do have, also, if you're on YouTube, please subscribe. It's free, but it helps us. So, get everyone to subscribe. And, there's a magic number. If we get up to 1,000, it makes a big difference for us. So
yeah, to monetize and all of that.
If you see content that you like, in the old days you bought a news. Just think about if you're old enough to remember subscribing to magazines and newspapers, even if you just got one paper a day, let's say most people got two. If you got say 2-3 magazines a day, a month, which that's like a low number, people spent hundreds of dollars a month on media. Well, now you don't spend anything, right? You're probably not getting the paper. You're reading that stuff for free. So if you want good stuff, you're going to have to pay for it. Otherwise, people like us are just going to go and work at Starbucks or whatever. We're just not going to be able to do it. So please hit the subscribe button.
Independent voices are going to be gone like cable because, let's face it, everyone here is obviously streaming, but that we'll all suffer the same fate. So I think this is going to be a fun ride with you, Ted. I feel like we've done this before.
Well, we have done this before. So for those who don't know, Manila and I had a show. We started a show called The Final Countdown on the late Russian show, Russian station, Radio Sputnik, which ended on Monday. I took it off the air.
No, Tuesday.
Manila, it was the strangest feeling. Literally, it went off the air at 12 noon. I was expecting the next show's music to start pumping in right at 11:59:59, and instead it just went stone cold silent. And for people who aren't following that story, it's because
John and Michelle not rush into the studio after.
the White House, yeah, and the White House, the President Biden personally shut down Radio Sputnik with sanctions. He personally did it. I mean,
Yes.
it's
Well,
not
I think
Congress, it's not the FCC.
I thought you meant he like personally walked down to K Street and shut down Radio Sputnik, because I was going to
That'd
say
be awesome.
maybe he just got lost, Ted, because it really is the Sputnik Studios was literally a block away from 1600 Pennsylvania, and
Yeah,
theoretically it's possible that they let Joe Biden just meander and he wound up at
He
the
could have been
studio.
out a wandering, but
It-
he did. But
It
yeah, no, I mean,
happens.
it's for people who care about these things. And there's an article that references this in Voice of America today, VOA News.
Oh,
You can, there's also an article.
I got it up. I got it here. Let's
We'll
show them.
look at that and yeah, put that up. And
Hold on, let's show
basically,
them.
it even mentions Manila and I, and basically it talks about how that went down. It's not 100% accurate to say, but that's how news is
Like,
nowadays. It wasn't the most egregious thing that's ever been written
no.
about us, I'm sure.
But
Um,
can I want to read the parts
Please.
at least about us. So obviously Voice of America. It's funny because Voice of America, the funding comes to them the same way Radio Sputnik or RT America was funded, right? Through their respective home governments and Voice of America. So if they're going to, it's the pot calling the kettle black here. So, so this morning
actually, Voice
before
of America is actually more of it's completely state. It's run by the State Department, isn't it? It's like completely U.S. government owned. RIA Novosti, which was the
100%.
parent company of RT, formerly Russia Today, and Radio Sputnik, was a private entity, actually. People always said it was Russian state media, but it really wasn't.
Right.
It was a Russian company, and certainly, I would say they were not enemies of President Putin's government or anything like that. But certainly, it was an independent company.
Yeah, but I mean, it's always RT and Sputnik were always treated as if like we got on editorial morning calls with Vladimir Putin himself.
True, which would have been
because
awesome. Actually, I would love to talk to him, but that didn't happen.
right, amazing. That would be amazing. But that's the way American mainstream media, especially places like Voice of America. So here's what they said. I woke up this morning to find this. I guess they published it yesterday afternoon. I didn't see it until this morning, but I woke up to see it and I went, good grief, we haven't even gone on air yet. And they're already trying to throw shade, and it won't be long before, because this is the dog whistle, and it won't be long before like the Daily Beast starts writing a rag. It won't be long before The Hill or somebody, and they start trying to dig into like our funding, Ted, and they're going to find out that we're poor. And so
Yeah, that'll be a short investigation. Yeah,
right. They're going to show us what's in your bank accounts, and they're going to start feeling bad for us. So Voice of America says here, 2 U.S. radio stations end Russian-backed propaganda programming by Catherine Gibson? Gibson?
And by the way, I just
Gibson?
would like to point out, as an editor, that they should have used double quotation marks instead of single quotation marks.
Yeah, I see. I know. Yeah, this is a poorly written article anyway, but Catherine's probably just out of J school. So here in Washington, Russian-backed radio programmer Sputnik no longer broadcasts in the Washington market after years of criticism that its local radio station WZHF carries anti-Semitic content and false information
What the
about
fuck
Russia's.
are they talking about? I mean,
About look at Ted Rall cursing.
Anti-Semitic. Are they kidding?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what they wrote, so it must be true.
Yeah, we're not allowed to curse
And
here?
false information. Say again.
We're allowed to curse here, aren't we?
We can curse here, Ted. This is our own show.
Yeah, it's our own show.
This is our own show. We can F-bomb, but I think YouTube.
But are they kidding? Seriously, our old boss at Sputnik would have fired anybody who said anything anti-Semitic without any like warning. I think.
Right.
No question about that. That
You'd
never
kick
happened.
down the studio door and fire you.
That never happened. Not one.
That never.
time.
No, it never happened. It was never anti-Semitic. Maybe there were guests that were anti-Zionist, obviously, but certainly
In fact,
not
on October 7th, 2023, one of the shows
Hmm.
he let them go because they refused to condemn Hamas's attack. They didn't say it was
Right.
good. They just said, kind of like, this doesn't come out of a clear blue sky. It's not in a
Right.
vacuum, and there are reasons this happened. And he was like, no, you're going to. They killed women and children. You're going to have to condemn this. They refused, so he fired them. That's how anti-Semitic they were.
Right. So then it goes on to say, first one about Ted, it says political cartoonist Ted Rall, who described himself as a guest on Sputnik's programming,
A
posted a
host is not a
comment.
guest, by the way.
I don't know,
I was a
posted a
host,
comment on
a co-host.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we literally, as we established, Ted, we founded a show together on the station. Like,
It was 2 hours every single day. Yeah.
so I don't know. So she goes on to say, she quotes you on what you said on Twitter or X. And, she finishes your segment about saying, my radio show and cartoons for them are being quashed. So are the other amazing shows I go off air with the station at noon. Then she doesn't even really quote me. She says, Manila Chan, a self-described indie journalist.
Self-described. Well, if we can go with self-described, I'm going to say, I'm Ted Rall, self-described stud hombre.
Stud muffin hombre. Manila Chan, a self-described indie journalist.
You are an independent journalist. I would say that's true. It's not
Like,
a self-description. I mean, it could be a self-description and still be true.
I guess. I mean, I guess because I call it indie and not independent, but that's because Twitter, doesn't give you that much space to
put indie journalist in quotes is what she should have done.
So yeah, tweeted Tuesday, and she didn't put my whole tweet because it doesn't fit what narrative she's trying to pump out. She said, tweeted Tuesday that she and Rall would be relaunching their show on YouTube. It cannot be a relaunch because this is not the final countdown.
No, it's not the final countdown. The format, it's not the name, it's not the same format.
It's two humans that
are going to be doing the same stuff here. Look, when we launched the final countdown,
yeah, Ted dropped an F-bomb already.
We had certain ideas, and there will be more F-bombs. But we had certain ideas of how we wanted a fast-moving show about a lot of quirky stuff, like generational demographics and stuff, like those kinds of stories. Deep analysis, long-term stuff. Like, let's really get in. Not like just reacting to the headlines. But unfortunately, we were not allowed to do a lot of that. So, the
format changed.
We have to do more reacting to the headlines.
Which the format.
Fine, but it was not.
It's okay. It's
this
fine.
Will be different. So it's not a relaunch, and we never said it was a relaunch. Not to mention, technically speaking, Manila, you left. You were the first co-host, the founding co-host of the Final Countdown with me.
Right.
And then there were two subsequent co-hosts, Angie Wong and Steve Gill. So technically, if we were relaunching, it would be with Steve, I think.
Right.
So bad journalism. By the way, she may have written a good piece and had it savaged by her editors. I want to give her the credit. That could have happened. That does happen.
I know it does happen, but in this case, I think she just got a lot of the stuff wrong. And then the rest of the article goes on to kind of throw shade on the whole of Russian anything, and I highlighted a part here.
Hey, so our producer is asking if you can turn your audio down a little bit.
I don't know how to do that, so I'm gonna have to do that when you're doing headlines. I'll try to figure it out.
No
but
problem. All right.
But the last line I want to read from Voice of America is the most ridiculous part. It says, RT and RT America, the TV and digital company founded by Russian President Vladimir Putin in 2005, directs Sputnik.
There's so much wrong.
Well,
inaccurate.
So, I mean,
so
guys,
first of all, RT did not direct Sputnik in any way, shape, or form.
No, two separate companies.
It was a sister company. It's like RJR and Nabisco. One sells cigarettes, the other one sells crackers. And the tobacco company did not direct the cracker company. They're different. It's sister, brother, sister, not parent. And then
But I think the funniest part is that they are basically saying that Vladimir Putin himself
personally,
created these were his brainchild, like, ideas, like, oh, I want the set to look like this, and can you ask Martha there to hike up her boobs a little bit more and shorten that hemline? Like, the whole look was it's all Vladimir Putin, because he's like this omniscient and omnipotent presence. He never sleeps. He creates radio stations, he creates TV stations, he rabble rouses all around the world. And look, I've never been all for defending Vladimir Putin, even on my previous shows on RT. I mean, he's a fallible human being, just like any other world leader, and he has done stuff that you can say any world leader. You pick any one of them. There's really nothing very different about Vladimir Putin, except that the collective West has jumped on his ass for years and years and years, because you always have to have a boogeyman, and he's been it. There's some things he's done right.
He is elected.
Right.
Well, the thing that's funny about, right? So, I mean, I know there are people who will hear this and say, what the fuck is Manila saying? Like, Vladimir Putin is evil. Russia invaded Ukraine. It invaded South Ossetia. It's like Russia's not free. It's an authoritarian government. He picked on LGBT people. But I'm going to defend you, Manila. I think it's like, you can say all those same things or more about the same leaders they don't pay attention to, like President Biden, right? I mean,
right.
I know they call this whataboutism. I would call it context, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's sort of like, okay, Russia invaded Ukraine. Look, countries in the modern era, the rules are you're not supposed to invade other countries. No one told George W. Bush that, I guess. And
right.
And I guess the thing is, in Russia's position, if you were, I've asked this question to a million people. Nobody's ever given me a straight answer, no matter how many like Ukraine flags they had hanging from their front porch. Like,
right.
If Mexico were to join an anti-American military alliance that required any attack on Mexico by the United States to be treated by all of its nuclear-armed allies as an attack on them, would the U.S. be okay with that? And the answer to that question is fuck no. The U.S. would invade the hell out of Mexico for whatever, the 100th time in its history. And there's no question about that. The U.S. troops would march straight to Mexico City and overthrow the government and install a puppet regime. No question about that. And so, that was the position that Putin found himself in. And it's interesting for the people who say, like, well, he just wants to control Ukraine. If that's really true, then how to explain the fact that Putin repeatedly said, I don't care if Ukraine joins the EU. I'm totally cool with that. They can join the EU and have that economic.
It's the whole NATO thing.
They can have the euro as their currency. That's fine with me. I don't care. I just don't want NATO right up on literally the most sensitive border in Russia. And I don't blame them. I don't. I have to think, and I would never look. I wouldn't vote for Vladimir Putin if I were Russian. I get why people do. But I wouldn't, because he's to the right of me. He's really
well. It's right. It's a well. That's
really
your
religious, and that's not me.
I would probably vote for him if I were a Russian citizen.
I'd vote for a leftist if there was one on the ballot, like one of the old communists.
Like, well, look. Last thing I'll say before we go to actual like top news stories and headlines, Ted. Last thing I'll say about that is the whole conflict in Ukraine. I whittle it down. People look at this as some, it's in a very macro way, because they hear terms like big, Russia, USSR, big, America, Ukraine, European Union. It's very nebulous to say those things. But if you whittle it down to literally, in a way that people here in the US can look outside and be like, yeah, I wouldn't like it if this happened to me. I always say, I don't support the war. I don't support any war. That's not who I am politically, morally, ethically, but I understand why it happened. And I put it this way, that let's say you and your family, like my family in my house in suburban Northern Virginia, right? If my single lady neighbor has a new boyfriend called the United States, and his drunk, belligerent ass is always walking over onto my property line, throwing fucking beer bottles, smashing my car, threatening my kids, threatening my spouse. Like, and I've talked to my neighbor where I'm like, listen, Susan, like, I know you're in dire straits. Like, you can't pay your rent or your mortgage. I get it. And I know this new boyfriend promises you like the whole world, right? He's going to marry you. He's not cheating on you, all that stuff. He's throwing money at you, making it rain. I know. I get it. You're in a bad spot. But listen, you got to get this belligerent asshole off my lawn,
Hey,
right? Like,
so
he's
well,
scaring my
by the
kids.
way, it sounds like that asshole is like the guy who lives next to Rand Paul.
Oh, that's true. That's true. But that's basically what it is. It's that Vladimir Putin, if I were in his shoes, that's how I would view what's happening next door, right? Is that the belligerent asshole is like breaking windows and like threatening my family. At what point, after you've talked to your neighbor for years and years and years, and the boyfriend still hasn't put a ring on it, at what point is your neighbor gonna
This is a
be
very
like,
detailed analogy.
but it's true.
That's
I've thought about it in that sense, like in a very micro sense. If you are that person with your family and the neighbor has this belligerent asshole there, something's got to be done.
Well, and, I mean, look, and I have to admit, I grew up during the Cold War, and I remember the idea of spheres of influence, which is the idea that big countries, big powerful countries like the U.S. and the USSR, kind of like naturally were kind of like might not be fair, might not be right, but kind of naturally had some control over like the hood, right? Than their neighbors. And under that doctrine, well, I mean, the U.S. probably started it with the Monroe Doctrine in the 19th century, the idea that the U.S. was literally like, no one can fuck with all of the Western Hemisphere, northern or central, north, south, or Central America without U.S. approval. You do that, we kick your ass. You do something in like, Guyana, we're coming for you. And so that's during up until 1991, that was widely accepted. I think it's still true. Look, the U.S. obviously has hegemonic control over the Caribbean, Canada, Mexico, many other places, but certainly our neighbors. I think in Russia, all the former Soviet republics are kind of more or less like Russia is kind of like, you can be independent, but we expect you're kind of vassal states. We expect you to at bare minimum not threaten us or bug us in any way.
Right.
Like, no, I used to park my car in a parking garage called Manhattan Plaza, and they had these big signs everywhere that said, "Know your level." And I always thought those were wise words.
Oh,
so because
know
when
your
you
level.
park your car, you're like,
Your
park
parking
car
level,
on
yeah.
12. You want to remember, know your level. Well, but you should know in life, you should know your level. And like Zelensky doesn't know his level. Like, you're not. It's like, oh, I'm a fully sovereign republic. Ish.
Okay.
But you're right next door to a giant nuclear armed state that used to own you. So that's
Right.
reality. I mean, and it might not be fair, but it's just the accident of your geography and your culture and your history. Sorry. And, if
Right.
you don't like it, go to war and see how it works out. Well, I guess they did. And it's not working
Well, they
out so
did.
great.
And the belligerent drunk asshole boyfriend is there. So,
Hey, I got to do a shout out.
Right.
So on the Rumble feed, we have our first subscriber for $5 a month, Well Dressed Nerd. Thank you.
Thank
so
you,
much,
nerd.
Mr. Well Dressed Nerd. So appreciate you.
I love well-dressed nerds.
Yes.
I used to date them.
I dressed. I dated some girl nerds, but they weren't really well dressed. But that's okay.
That's
I didn't
usually
care
the
about that.
case.
I'm not exactly,
Usually,
as you can tell, I'm not the sartorial king of the TMI show.
I was a well-dressed nerd in high school, I must say.
So that's all that
Right.
I promise we're not.
That's all
be
we got to say.
talking
Yeah,
about.
we're not going to talk about this the whole time.
Yeah, we're not going to, and
we're
probably not going to touch upon, like, unless there's further coverage or anything of this. That this is kind of hangover from Sputnik kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we're gonna.
It's the elephant in the room.
We're gonna put
We
this
got-
elephant into its elephant box and leave it there.
Yeah.
Like whatever sounds elephants make. And
baby elephants. All right, let's actually get over to some of the news.
Let's do that,
Ted. That we've curated some headlines for you. But check out this new little wipe. I like it. Ted's like iffy on it. So I don't know. We're gonna take a vote in our democracy like this before we go to headlines. We call it a wipe. I
I
like it.
like the sound. I was expecting a whoosh, like a whoosh, but
No,
instead,
I like it.
it sounds almost like creaky, like an old man's jaws, like Biden's jaws, like
That's
slowly opening and closing.
I like it. I'm gonna take myself off the screen, and Ted is gonna read you the headlines. This is the stuff. See, we curated it ourselves, like the topics, or not the topics, but these are stories that Ted and I think are, are
Are
making
worth
waves
knowing
around the
about.
world. Yeah,
Worth
they're
knowing
worth.
about.
Yeah, so
All right.
usually we'll do this at the top of the show. We should
By the
let
way,
you
there
know,
was
but
a
we
little bit
had
of
to address
breaking
it.
news. Yawa Sinwar,
Mm.
he was the presumably deceased head of Hamas, who had been allegedly assassinated by the Israelis, may not actually be dead. So we might follow up on that, but just thought you might want to know.
Good psych and fake out.
Yeah, totally.
Okay,
I
go
mean, you could expect a video like nah 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 nah. All right, so
go for it. Go for the headlines, Ted.
speaking of military, off we go. Okay, things in Gaza are getting even worse. Israel has stopped processing requests from traders to import food to Gaza. That, according to Reuters. This ends a source that for the past 6 months supplied more than half of the besieged Palestinian territory's food. As of October 11th of this year, Gaza-based traders who were importing food from Israel and the Israeli-occupied West Bank have now lost access to a system introduced in spring by Kogat. That's the Israeli government body that oversees aid and commercial shipments, and have received no reply to attempts to contact the agency, the sources said. The shift has driven the flow of goods arriving in Gaza to its lowest level since the start of the war, a Reuters analysis of official Israeli data shows. The details of the halt in commercial goods into Gaza have not been previously reported. Kogal didn't reply to Reuters' questions about commercial food imports or aid to Gaza. I mean, it's unbelievable that things are this bad. I read, Manila, that 60% of Gaza has officially been flattened, and the latest sort of smart assessments are that at least 250 to 300,000 Palestinians have now died in the West Bank. In Gaza. That's far in excess of the official numbers, because the official numbers only count it when you have a body, and when you have that body,
Right.
you know the person's name and age and
Identifiable.
ID number, all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, you have their ID card and all that. If you just have like, hey, here's a leg, they don't count that. So that's why it's only 41,000. I mean, only. But
As the official
yeah.
number.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's interesting to me. Look, Americans don't really think that their political class is going to be very responsive to this, which is why we don't talk about it much. The protests seem to have died down for the most part, but there's still, I think this is still going to have an effect on the election.
Oh, I agree, and that's why Kamala Harris is the one. I mean, even though she's not the incumbent, she's kind of quasi the incumbent, and because she is part of the Biden dash Harris administration, and they have lost so much support in critical swing states like in Michigan and Wisconsin. Michigan, of course, home to the largest Arab American population in the United States, and a lot of young people there. There's a bit more broadly in the Arab world. It's the youngest demographic in the world. I don't know if you knew that, Ted. They're reproducing a lot.
Yeah,
But
that's one of the things that Jewish Israelis are very worried about, right? Like they think that they would, if they had a democratic state, even people who are liberal and don't like what's going on in the occupied territories, they'll say, but if we have a democratic Palestinian Republic where everybody has one person, one vote, what will happen? Well, the Palestinians are going to win the baby race, and where are we going to be?
right.
I mean, look, the answer is going to be, you're going to be a minority. It's like the same question that's been asked of white Americans, right? Like, whites are now just above 50% of the population in the United States. And there's all these like racial replacements people on the right who worry about that. I'm like, don't worry about it. You'll be a minority. It'll be fine.
Right. I've been a minority my whole life.
Yeah, I don't mind being a minority. I mean, I guess, and I'm already used to it. I've been brutalized by the police. So, all right, let's get into this next story. Italy has passed an anti-surrogacy law that effectively bars gay couples from ever becoming parents. This will become the West's most restrictive law against international surrogacy, and it threatens would-be parents who use overseas birth mothers with jail time and heavy fines. Domestic surrogacy is already banned in Italy, classifying the practice as a universal crime that transcends borders like terrorism or genocide. Also, Italian same-sex couples are now barred from domestic and international adoption. A female senator from Giorgia Meloni's party said, "We believe that surrogacy essentially reduces a woman to a reproductive machine." Um, I got to say, Manila, I thought this was really interesting for a variety of reasons. I mean, obvious, and probably the one that's most shocking is it's Italy, right? I mean, we think of
Hmm.
Italy as a liberal, democratic place, right? And it's like, why? How could this happen? It's I mean, it's Italy. How could they have done this? And
Right.
then also there's the question of how can you impose your country's laws outside of the borders
And
of your country?
right.
I don't. I mean, the U.S. has set that precedent. I know, but how?
Exactly. Well, I don't know how you, I mean, obviously, maybe we'd have to talk to an international lawyer about that sometime. But I mean, the, this, I will agree that this is a blow to a lot of, obviously, um, LGBTQAI 123 plus rainbow. I don't know what the flags are anymore and the acronym.
LMNOP.
Yeah, I don't know. I apologize. I'm not trying to be mean. I literally don't know what's been added to. I can't. There's too many. But anyway, it's a blow to a lot of those people, obviously. So, and on the one hand, there's a lot of kids around the world that need good homes. But as people always say, elections have consequences, and Georgia Maloney's electoral win, and she was backed by, and this is a far departure, right, from Sergio Berlusconi's. I mean, they're the same party, Sergio Berlusconi's era with the Bunga Bunga party, literally the parties part, like he was having like coked out,
Oh yeah, that's
crazy
true.
like stripper parties, Bunga Bunga parties. Um, so even though she's kind of like a protege of Berlusconi, the late Berlusconi, she's taking a very different tack when it comes to getting back to their Roman Catholic roots in the country, and they're kind of applying that there. And I do agree to the part that the female senator said, in one way, when you are having like baby factories, for example, like in Ukraine, like prior to the war, Ukraine was literally, for the West, the baby factory. There were literally like facilities that were set up where hundreds of women were surrogate mothers, because this was the only way those women could actually make a living and make any
And it's a
money,
lot. It's a
because
lot of money, right? I mean, because
it's a lot of money.
like the going rate for surrogacy, it depends on who you talk to, but it's like basically $15,000 to bring
Yeah.
a kid to term, right? So
Yeah.
for and as it is, that's enough even for like some hard up college kids who are trying to make ends meet
Yeah.
to do that here in the United States. But in a country like a former Soviet republic like Kazakhstan used to be a big baby source for surrogacy. It isn't anymore. China, obviously, for many years they stopped doing that. But basically, it if you just think about that money, even if let's say the company splits that 50-50 with the mother, with the birth mother, $7,000 is a lot of money in a place like China or Ukraine, much more
Yeah.
than in the U.S. It's
So
big
I
bucks.
think to that point that the senator was making, she's right on that point. But this being a cosmopolitan first world country, Italy, it's still shocking
Well,
to
and they have a low
learn
birth
that
rate
news.
there too. I mean, that's part of the problem is a lot
Yeah.
of
Well,
Italians.
all
I
of the
mean,
West.
well, they have. I mean, the problem with Western Europe, including Italy, has a major problem with underemployment and unemployment for people in their 20s and 30s, even people who are well educated and will eventually make some money when they're in their 40s or 50s. So they don't feel like they can afford to have kids. And
Well,
when they're and then of
that's
course
that's a
obviously
show episode, Ted.
that is a show episode. And I mean, like one thing that I went through this whole process myself, trying to have a kid, and it was like I learned so much stuff that Americans don't know. Like for example, your fertility, female fertility in the United States drops off falls off a cliff when you turn 34. People don't know that, and they think, oh no, you have until you're 45. Well,
Yeah, no,
maybe
no.
IVF will do it for you, maybe at 40, but like you know, really truly, if you're really serious about having kids, you want to do it the old-fashioned way. You probably should think about doing it before you're 25. 28 is another. It drops in stages, right? Basically,
Hmm.
biologically, we're supposed to have kids when we're like 16. So,
Oh, yeah, I know.
but that's not our culture. It used to be, 200 years ago, but it isn't now. And
Right.
so,
Well,
yeah,
our lifespans are a lot longer
but our
too, though,
bodies
Ted.
haven't changed with our culture. So, you have a drop off at 28, a drop off at 34, and then finally, you're in the dead zone at 42. I mean, ain't nothing gonna happen. I mean, there's literally a list on the
I'm the
internet
crypt
of
keeper then.
every woman who has ever had a natural birth over the age of 45. It's on Wikipedia. It's like I think it's only a few hundred globally.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean it's a huge thing. All right,
Through
let's
the
move.
natural old-fashioned way, you mean?
We're already falling behind in our formatics, so
Yeah,
let's
we're
keep
already
going. All right.
behind. All right, yeah.
I found this fascinating. Many Americans are car poor. That, according to the Washington Post, a recent Edmunds report found a disturbing trend. An increasing number of consumers with auto loans had negative equity, meaning that they were underwater. They owe more on their vehicle than it's worth, a lot more. As of Q3 that ended September 30th, Edmunds said a quarter of trade-ins applied towards a new vehicle purchase had negative equity. The average upside-down loan spiked to an all-time high of over $6,400. Look at the outliers. Of those with negative equity, 22% owed 10 grand or more. 77.5% owed over 15 grand on a car. Like, in other words, 15 grand more than the car's trade-in value. If borrowers don't have the money to pay off the old loan, all the negative equity gets rolled into the new one. That means the next car also starts with negative equity, creating an expensive cycle of debt. Currently, the average new car loan interest rate, and this is of interest to me because I'm kind of in the market for a new car. I drive a 2015. For a buyer with excellent credit, is 5.25%, according to Experian, and that just makes me, that's chilling to me. I paid 0.75% on my last car loan. But if the average jumps to 15.7% if you have poor credit. For used car buyers, the average interest rate is between 7.13 and, get this, 21.55%, depending on the borrower's credit history. The Muslims are against, in Sharia law, are opposed to usury. I think anybody who charges 20% for a loan should be executed. In the calculator, sorry, let me skip that part. So if you need to take out a 7-year auto loan, as some people are doing, you probably can't afford the car. Pretty terrifying.
Keep rolling, Ted. We're behind the clock. We
All
have a
right, keep
guest
going.
coming.
And AI is impacting the global energy market. Amazon will invest $500 million towards nuclear power in order to meet the rising energy demands of its data centers and artificial intelligence initiatives. Yesterday's announcement came just 2 days after Google unveiled plans to purchase nuclear power, and less than a month after Microsoft said that it would reopen TMI, the other TMI, 3 Mile Island, home to the worst nuclear accident in US history, to fuel its AI efforts. Nuclear power is 19% of US electricity generation and comes from energy released when the nucleus of a heavy atom splits into lighter atoms. While expensive and potentially hazardous, proponents pitch nuclear power as a clean alternative to greenhouse gas emitting energy sources like coal, oil, and gas. Energy intensive generative AI applications and data centers are expected to account for roughly 9% of total US power consumption by 2030. And of course, crypto also causes a lot of power usage. Amazon and Google are investing in small modular reactors, which are cheaper and easier to build than traditional nuclear reactors. They generate up to 300 megawatts of power, or about a third of the amount of power of a traditional reactor. Only 2 SMRs currently operate in the world, both in China and in Russia. And finally, in the entertainment arena, an original member of the UK mega boy band, Liam Payne, fell from a third-story hotel balcony in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Payne rose to fame in 2015 on the popular British talent show X Factor, hosted by Simon Cowell. It's unclear whether the fall was intentional or if it was an accident. Authorities are investigating, as reports surfaced that he was acting aggressive in the hotel lobby an hour or two before the incident. As the news broke, thousands of his fans gathered outside the hotel paying tribute to the late singer-songwriter. He was just 31 years old and leaves behind one son, age 7.
All right. That's
That's
very sad.
Very, very sad.
Yeah, they're looking into it, and their TMZ got blasted for posting somebody took pictures and they showed like his arm where he had identifying tattoos and like part of his body after he was laying there dead on the ground. And I
So
have mixed feelings about that. We don't have much time.
We have a tech issue. Our guest who's
Yeah.
waiting in the wings can't hear me.
We're gonna sort that out in real time because again, it's our very first show and we're trying to comb out all the bumps and we're gonna try to fix that. So, but yeah, that very very sad story and so young. And right now they think that there might be some drugs involved. So
that would not be shocking.
Yeah, but it's very sad. He was there apparently attending his former bandmate Niall Horan, his concert, and I guess tragedy. Oh, tragic. Something happened. So they're looking into that. So the UK authorities are getting involved as well because obviously he is a British national. So, but TMZ publishing those photos kind of in poor taste, Ted.
What were the photos of his body or?
Yeah, parts.
Well, I mean, look, honestly, no, I totally disagree. I think poor taste has nothing to do with it. News is news.
I know.
I know. Don't publish that American, editors and producers think, oh, we shouldn't show that stuff. I mean, it's like, you should. It's news.
It's not war pictures though. I believe we've been coddled in American media from let's say the 1950s newspapers or 30s
Vietnam.
newspapers. Vietnam, but like the mobsters, when they were shot dead at a bar or something.
Yeah, well,
the photos are shown.
When Big Paul Castellano was killed in front of Sparks Steakhouse in 1985 in New York City, that was all over the front page of the New York Post and the Daily News.
His body?
Oh yeah, oh totally.
Oh, yeah. Well, and ever since then, I think part of what's happened in the media culture is they've applied that metric to the same thing as like war, and we no longer show those images when for instances like war. I believe they should show it because it really lets the American people see how ugly and gruesome it is, and that's partially now being done thanks to social media, like Elon Musk buying Twitter, and people wouldn't know about the horrific stuff that's happening in Gaza if it weren't for Elon Musk allowing those images to be shown on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because American mainstream media will never show them, right?
Right. They think it's they have this stupid idea like, oh, it's a family newspaper, it's a family TV. Let me just tell you, first of all, as a parent, no one under 100, well, no one under 50 years old is watching the news. So, I mean, really, truly, it doesn't matter. No one's, you don't have to worry about like too many 9-year-olds looking at the New York Times and getting upset at the pictures. I mean, really, it's not a factor. It's an adult publication anyway. I get it. It could be disturbing if it was like this idea of the family paper or something, but I mean, look, I see the point. I remember that very famously, I read about this happened many years.
But this is like the one guy. That's where I find it tasteless.
A woman jumped off the Empire State Building and she hit the top of a car. I think this was in the 1940s or 50s, and it's a very famous photo of her that was all over the media because she had it's kind of a smile on her face, and it's like,
oh, I've seen that.
It's iconic, and it's disturbing. And you could also say it might be encouraging copycat suicides and stuff like that, and it give people ideas. And certainly there's a copycat aspect to taking your own life for sure, which is why people use the same bridges, for example, to do it. But I mean, I don't know. For me, I'm a rabid free speech person. I mean, I think information, you have to share it. All right, looks like we have the text worked out. We should move on.
Oh, good. All right. Let me add this cool little graphic again. Our teeth. And bring in our guest, Ted.
There's that pause at the beginning that we're gonna have to edit out.
Yeah, you're like, are they off air for just a split second?
Yes, that's not good. Yeah, we have to edit that out.
All right, let's bring in our guest. You go ahead and bring in the
Okay,
guest.
I'll go ahead and bring him. Some of you may already be familiar with Tyler Nixon. He's an Army infantry veteran, counselor at law, constitutionalist, advocate, writer, technologist, critical historian, and an extremist in the defense of liberty. And he also happens to be the first guest ever on this program, the TMI show, with me, Ted Rall, and Manila Chan. Tyler Nixon, thanks for following us across the Great Divide.
Hi, Tyler. Can we hear Tyler? No, we don't hear Tyler.
Tyler is being suppressed. Let's hear him.
It's the
Tyler, are
censors.
you on mute? Maybe you might be on mute. That's the bane of all broadcasts. Everybody puts themselves on mute because they're like, cooking or on the bowl or whatever, and then they.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. I'm gonna try to figure that out because I'm punching the show. Yikes! But I don't hear Tyler. He says he can hear us. There's no video. Tyler's not doing video this morning. He wants to do audio, which is fine by me.
Okay.
If we can get the audio going.
Okay, sorry.
I don't know if Tyler can hear us.
All right, while you work on that, I'm just going to sort of rant a little bit about the AI thing. This is a great example of like why I think a state-run economy is a good thing, because suddenly you have a huge disruptive force like AI, which has all sorts of ramifications well beyond the fact that AI will be creating better cartoons than I can draw. But here you have nuclear power. AI is literally going to cost billions of dollars in additional energy costs at a time when really the last thing we need is the emission of more greenhouse gases. Hey, there he is.
Oh,
all right.
There he is.
My Kamala-like filibuster is over. Welcome, Tyler.
Sorry about that, folks. I'm back in Delaware, so I'm sort of a little tenuous with the technology, but it is great to be with you on this auspicious first day of the new show with you guys. And I just want to say that I'm so happy to see free speech and free thought rise above the tyrannical hand of our federal leviathan, and that you've been able to pop out of that terrible situation, frankly, which is appalling, and to start anew.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thanks, Tyler. Did we lose you?
No, I'm here.
The audio drop. Oh, there you are. There you are. Yeah, the Voice of America gave us a great little write-up this morning. They before we even went on air, they didn't really attack, but they decided to, I guess, I don't know, blow the whistle on Ted and I launching a new show, which is hilarious because I don't know, they're trying to imply, I guess, maybe that we're funded somewhere, but we're not funded, which is why we desperately need people to subscribe. This is on our own dime. It's our own project. I don't know if they're trying to link us to like some nefarious Russian funding, but that's just not the case. Like, this is literally mine and Ted's own brainchild, and we're just going for it. And we have a lot of friends in media, like you included, that have a lot of great things to say. And Joe Biden's going to have to come pry the microphone out of my cold, dead hands himself. Although I feel like I might beat him. I feel like at this, I don't think he can like pry my hands open.
The sort of technology cuts both ways. I mean, certainly they can use it, and they have been using it for all sorts of nefarious surveillance and data collection, data mining, and what have you, and censorship too. However, in the hands of good people, it enables you and Ted to get together, and in the wake of the destruction of Sputnik Radio and RT, to just immediately get back on the air and begin with very little interruption, informing people and getting the truth out there. So I just don't think, I think in the hands of good people, this technology can be just as powerful, if not more so, to overcome the nefarious intentions of people under this administration, certainly, and that exists throughout the world.
Thank you, Tyler. So the main reason we brought you on is more to talk about like politics and obviously this horse race, because we are, what are we, like 2.5 weeks out from the election.
Hard to
Math is
believe.
not my strong suit,
Electoral,
right?
electoral political bullshit, as a poster I saw in Harlem a couple of days called it. I
And we
love
can
it.
say that now that we're
Yes.
unshackled by the FCC.
That's right.
That's right. That's right. Feel free to chime in on that.
Oh, well, you know, gosh, it's been such a long road, and I think we've all dreaded. Some people have dreaded the outcome either way, but I think more people dread a Harris presidency than dread a return to the Trump presidency at this point. And I think we're going to start to see a massive break in the direction of Trump. That is going to be, as his campaign slogan, recent campaign slogan says, "Too big to rig." I think you're going to see that, and I think what you're seeing is the bleeding away of the sort of the more centrist, if there is such a thing, Democrat, the Democrats in this, the center of the Democrat Party anyway, and all you're left with basically are the sort of hardcore partisans who either absolutely detest and cannot stand Donald Trump, or are just absolutely in the tank for the fascist Borg that party and its extended tentacles have become.
So, Tyler, we've been hearing, particularly from Fox News, the last, 70 days or whatever it is that she's been at the top of the ticket and campaigning as the unelected Democratic nominee, that she wasn't giving enough any interviews really until as of late. Like the first one, she went on with Dana Bash from CNN, but she brought her emotional support animal, Tim Walz, with her, which was weird because, like, you're supposed to be this strong, independent woman, but yet you bring this dude with you. Like you're vying to become the first female president of the United States, and you bring some dude with you, right? And Tim Walz just sat there. And then so now she has that horrific interview with CBS like a week or so ago, and it was edited massively because she talks in circles and word salad. And
Well,
even with
in
their
fairness, all 60 Minutes interviews are edited. You can tell from the jump cuts.
yes,
Just saying.
yes,
It's not,
very
this was not
jumpy.
particular to her.
No, but my point is, as much as they did
Well,
edit
they're
the
edited.
interview,
I was going to
it
say
was
they're
still
not
bad.
edited. They're not edited to alter the actual
this one was.
responses.
Yeah, this one was.
Yeah, and that's the anomaly. I mean, of course, everything on television like that is edited, but they change the actual substance of the interview to
I
make
feel
her
like they
look less
shouldn't. I think for a political
foolish.
interview, it should be done in a straight cut or not at all.
Absolutely, no question. I mean, who are they to edit what she said or how she responded to a question in order to make her look better or not look so bad? That's
Yeah, but
a real problem.
even with the editing, she still came off like an idiot, Tyler. Like,
Yeah.
let's
Oh,
be
I
honest.
know.
Like, even with clever editing.
Well, that's
And this
so
is
that's,
why
I'm really
I
glad
think
you brought that up. I mean, Tyler, I want to hear your thoughts about this, but I have a feeling I probably can guess, but I still want to hear them. So, like I believe in the scientific method, right? If there's no reason to believe, if there's no evidence to support the idea that something exists, like say the Easter Bunny, it's not reasonable to assume that it exists. Is it true that it could exist? Sure, but we shouldn't spend much time thinking about it. I feel that way about Kamala Harris's intelligence. We don't really have any evidence that she's smart. We don't have any track record of like, there's no one who ever worked with her as AG who's like, oh my God, we were really stumped. We were trying to crack down on this rogue corporation or this rogue or this serial killer. And then suddenly Kamala came up with this great idea and we were like, bam, and then we nailed the fucker. Like that never happened. We have no secondhand information about that at all. We have no one in the White House who's ever come out and said, in a cabinet meeting, we didn't know what to do about Malta. And then suddenly Kamala, she knew, she had it done. We don't even, we have more reason to think that Biden is smart, which I don't believe, but we have more reason to think that because people lied and said, oh, behind the scenes, he's amazing. We don't even have that about her. We don't have anyone who says behind the scenes, she's amazing. No one's even willing to lie on her behalf, right?
Oh,
and so,
man.
and there's no, so I'm wondering, I think she's a bird brain. I really do.
Well, first of all, what do you mean the Easter Bunny doesn't exist?
Oh.
Secondly,
or they
oh
might.
no,
I don't wanna,
well, at least I can look forward. I can look forward to Santa Claus coming at least.
Yes.
That being said, listen, Biden is nothing. Look, he's not smart, he's not intelligent, but he's clever, and he's always been very wily as a politician.
Cunning.
In order yes, to keep himself where he is. In fact, I would have the name that to my mythical Biden family sort of expose would have been political animals, in that they have these instincts, and I think you could
Hmm.
almost put Harris in that category, although probably more one who had less or fewer, I should say, challenges like say Biden did as just a one in the Washington D.C. I mean, Harris, you're absolutely right. I can't even say she failed her way up, because there's not even enough of a record there to say she failed, except other than obviously her work in California as the AG, I think was pretty bad. But she was nothing in terms of being a senator. She was sort of a dud. She stepped up
Yeah.
in a few instances where they needed her, such as in the Kavanaugh hearings. And to be honest, I honestly thought much better of her from her sort of, and this is I think what Biden succeeded from, which is that when he did pop up, he was able to brief himself up and to sort of fake the funk. He was able
Ah,
to go on Sunday morning shows and sound like erudite and studied, and he knew all about the Senate judicial confirmation process and about the Constitution.
right.
He was a constitutional professor, or that he knew all about Iraq and he knew all about foreign policy and the ABM treaty, and the SALT talks, and all this kind of stuff. And but when you really actually sat and talked to him and bored into it, like the man was just he was briefed up well, but he didn't read thoroughly. He didn't study these issues,
Mm,
and it was just on the fly in order to prop himself up or to insinuate himself into a policy debate or situation. And I think Harris did that while she was senator. Otherwise, she stayed, sort of just beneath the radar. And then when she did try to go out into the big time and would have to be extemporaneous, she blew it big time. Other than, of course, bashing Joe Biden, but I mean, she was spit out of the bottom of the Democrat primary process. So you can tell
yeah.
that the people obviously she interacted with, she was out there campaigning, did not like her and did not believe she was competent. And Joe
Yeah.
Biden, though, I think bought himself his assassination insurance, so to speak, or his, his 25th Amendment insurance with Kamala Harris.
That's true.
Being pushed down the spiral staircase in the West Wing.
Oh,
Great way to put it. And so I think that, this is Biden's revenge because they couldn't move. I think they realized that he was tanking, but they didn't have enough time to engineer a
right,
coup where it was, say, Michelle
right.
Obama or whoever have you. So they were stuck with her, figuring, well, she'll play ball, and she can fake the funk enough to be. She's been vice president for 3.5 years at this point, but they calculated
Well,
wrong. She is
the joy
absolutely
is gone, Tyler. The joy
oh my
the
God,
joy
yes,
is gone. Like,
all
what
three
kind of
seconds of it.
what kind of like slogan is that for a campaign? Like the joy of voting, the joy of like what
Well,
joy are
I'm
we
glad you brought that
talking
up.
It's one
about?
for vapid morons.
I wanted to, so it's interesting, right? Like all the campaigns are trying to, every campaign, including Trump's, they have some holes, right, in their demographics, their weaknesses. It's inevitable, and they're trying to fill them up, right? So, like, Trump has a woman problem, Harris has a man problem, and Harris
Yes.
has been
Oh man,
trying to
those
deal
ads.
with her man problem, by bringing in, by running these like really corny ads, like
Horrible ads.
with all the really super hyper butch guys. And I just want to
They
point
were
out that
not Ted, they were
these
not
are, well,
butch.
they're
Yeah.
actors pretending to be butch.
Well,
And
the
the thing
guy
is,
sitting on the tailgate, I gotta show that like another
we'll
day.
have
Like
to do that. But
like
it's
I
it's
sit more
kind.
spread eagle than that guy
But also, I want to
on
just
a
say
on a
parenthetically,
tailgate. Like,
it's a
come on.
very homoerotic ad with a lot of homoerotic, like, I give her my full-throated support. No one really says
Oh my
full-throated.
god.
Just saying. That's
Oh
like when
my
I
god.
think of full-throated, I go straight to 1973 when I saw Deep Throat sneaking into the porn theater.
Or throat goat. That's a word, right?
So I'm like, so it's very homoerotic. But I mean, the thing that was interesting, and I was trying to figure out exactly why it's a fail. I figured it out. It's making
think I
fun
have
of
it.
the people, men, that you're trying to get to vote for you. And
No,
it
that's
is.
not. No,
That's
that
It
the
can't
really
problem.
be.
is. It really
That's what
is.
you.
You're
That's what you
making
just
fun?
don't. It didn't make fun of them very well. Yeah, of course it makes fun of men. Like, oh, I'm man enough to not ask for directions.
Well, I mean,
Those kind of jokes, right? It's not very. It's, by the way, I looked it up. It's
poorly
one of the
executed.
writers for this was a old Jimmy Kimmel writer. So it's like that
Oh,
kind
no
of
kidding.
dumb sort of SNL light kind of humor. But
It's like
don't make fun of the
unintentionally
people you're trying
ironic.
to vote for. If you're trying to get people to vote for you, just play it
Look,
straight and just be honest.
I have it. I'm just gonna show a quick second of that, if
All
you
right,
guys don't
awesome.
mind. I know
No,
Tyler.
no,
I don't
no.
know if you can
Let it
see.
go. Rock it.
I
Let
can
it
see it.
go.
No,
You
no.
can see it. Okay.
Yeah, let's have it. Let's have it.
Okay. I'm gonna put this up for you guys. Hold on.
Release the hounds.
Let's play.
I'm a
Or the
man.
Kraken.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, man.
I'm man enough.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Neat.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
Man enough to deadlift 500,
Making
then
fun of
braid
guys.
out of my daughter's hair.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast.
I ain't afraid of bears.
Not the
That's
only
what
thing
bear
he ate.
hugs are for.
I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women.
They want to control their bodies?
Then you're
I
not
say
smart.
go for it.
They want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families.
They want to be childless cat ladies?
Have all the cats you want.
Woman wants to be president?
Well, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement.
Because I'm man enough to support women.
Man enough to know what kind of donuts I like.
Man enough to admit I'm lost, even when I refuse to ask for directions.
Man enough to not ban young women from reading Little Women.
Or one of those pants books that the sisters like.
I'm man enough to raw dog a flight. It
Raw
sucks.
dog.
What?
Not
worth
gay.
it.
That's
I'm
not
man
gay.
enough to be emotional in front of my wife.
In front of my kids.
In front of my horse. I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually, Good Will Hunting.
West Side Story.
That and Predator.
And I'm sick of so-called men domineering, belittling, and controlling women just so they can feel more powerful. That's not how my mama raised me.
I love women.
I love women who support their
Belittling and
families.
domineering
Women who decide
are
not to
not
have
words
families.
that
Women
any
who take charge.
heterosexual
I'm
male
man
has
enough
ever
to
said.
help them win.
That's the guy I'm talking about on the tailgate of the truck. Like I swear, like I sit more masculine on the back of a truck than he does, and I
True.
certainly do not put my arm like in a prom pose without a date. Like that. Who sits like that? Who sits like that? This is just a horrible.
So,
This
it's
is
very-
why the
you
joy
see-
is gone.
but it's
He's
so
still going to
anti-
vote Trump.
It's so anti-male. It's so. I mean, it's like. I mean, whoever says I'm tired of men belittling and domineering? Like no man wrote that. Okay,
I mean,
that's not
yeah,
possible.
that's straight out of Now.
It's like. By the way, she's
The guy
on the
who
phone
says
with
that.
Hillary. You just know she is. She's getting a lot
Oh,
of Hillary
sure.
advice.
Well, how about the
Oh,
one
for
guy
sure.
who says, I'm going to eat a carburetor? I'm like, "What, are you Yule Gibbons? I mean, what-
I said this is not the only thing he ate for breakfast. So-
yeah,
Full-throated.
lock in there.
Oh God. See, this is not a reboot of the final countdown. This
It
is
could
like
not be.
totally. This is like Ted and Manila, Unchained. Like
Unfiltered.
this is very different. So Voice
Fuck,
of America. if
Yeah,
you're-
I can say that.
Thank you,
it's a
Tyler. Yes, you
beautiful
can.
thing. Yes, you can.
Yes,
And-
you
and
can.
and it's encouraged.
Yes, we can.
But I mean, so like,
Sí se puede.
honestly, Harris has a male problem, and if she loses, it's gonna be in part because of that, right? I mean, to me, if I were trying to fill, I would say something along the lines of, I have brothers. I have a stepson. I have the men in my life are super important to me. I adore them. And, women don't get anywhere without men. Men don't get anywhere without women. We're all Americans together. A lot of men and boys are being left behind. The feminization of the educational system. 58% of college students are female. When that was the other way around, that was a problem. And it's still a problem now that it's this way around. And I'm going to be, I'm not going to be a woman president or a president for women. I'm a woman president for all Americans. Why can't you say that?
Well, my namesake and distant relative, President Nixon, once said that you can be hated, you can be loved, but for God's sake, don't be boring. And I would alter that to say you can be hated, you can be loved, but for God's sake, don't be cringe. And I think that will be the hallmark of the Harris campaign when all is said and done. And you cannot do cringy stuff repeatedly. I mean, it's one thing, everybody has a cringe moment, but when you're in that spotlight, but for God's sake, I would say Trump. I don't think I've ever cringed. Well, cringy in the sense of like, this is so banal and sort of hokey. And her campaign has just been one cringe moment after another. I mean, how much can you cringe before it's like it becomes a recoil? And I think that's the problem. And you're absolutely right, Ted. I totally agree with you on if you're going to address a sensitive issue in the sense that, it's men. Yeah, it's exactly. The target audience cannot be made to feel like, who are these morons that they're trying to portray as the average guy? And
Right.
It also, frankly, speaks down to the audience, the target audience, which is not
They're
also
talking
not,
down.
not
They're talking down to us dudes. I mean, by the way, I found it offensive when former President Barack Obama was giving a speech along the same talking point the other day
Oh,
to
yeah.
a group of black men,
Oh,
where he's like, maybe
so
you
so
guys
did a
just-
lot of black men.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what's wrong with you that you won't vote for a black woman? Okay. So first of all, don't insult the voters. Rule 101 of running an election, right? Like, no, even if the voters are all assholes and stupid, that doesn't matter. You don't treat them that way. They're the customer. The customer is always right. It's not our job to be interested in them, or it's not our job to vote for a woman or a black president. It's their job to make us want to. Tyler?
Absolutely. No, I agree. Look, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're gonna come, it's the most tin-eared, myopic campaign I think I've ever heard in my life is the Harris campaign. Like, who's running this freak show?
Well, it reminds
honestly?
me of 2016 Hillary Clinton a lot. It really does. It has a lot of the same vibe. Like, it has.
Very much.
Remember her whole like "I'm with her" thing, and my critique was, we're not supposed to be with her. She's supposed to be watching our backs. That's how this works. Donald Trump is better at this. He's far from perfect as a campaigner, but he'll say things like, "I'm your retribution." I'm doing it for you. That's
Right.
much more powerful and effective rhetoric.
It's also divisive. It implies a divide.
Look, no, Ted, you're a boy dad. I'm a boy mom. Actually, your cat too, a boy. So
That's
you're
true.
a double boy dad. I'm a human boy dad, a boy mom. Am I? Yeah, this is 2024. I can be whatever I want. Okay.
Sure.
Exactly.
So I'm a mom. I have a son, and I look at the statistics and the numbers of how America has begun failing our boys in the system in school, as you pointed out at the top, Ted. And this is not because I love Trump. I'm in favor of Trump. I mean, between the two of them, I think he's slightly better. But how she's catering her campaign specifically towards, white liberal women, first of all, and then secondarily white liberal men. But she really is leaving out, I think, people like me who are, even though it's very unsexy to be this way, that kind of moderate, I'm a little libertarian there, I'm a little liberal here, I'm a little conservative there, but I'm a suburban mom first and foremost, and my son is the most important person in my life. And if you're not outlining a plan to get someone like me to vote for you, to where I can say, you know what, this is going to lead us down a better path for my son to have, a better chance of applying to university and not be discriminated because he, of his race, because he's not a preferred minority, or not discriminate on my son because he is a boy, right? Like, he's a biological boy and, remains a boy. I want to know that the next president is plotting out a path for my son to have a better future. I'm halfway into the grave. I already know that. I'm middle age. It's the future. The future is my son. And I haven't heard her say anything to address, issues like the inequality at schools, or the suicide rate that is disproportionately, like wildly disproportionately high suicide rate with males versus females. Just none of that has ever been
Opioid
addressed.
Addiction is disproportionately
All that stuff,
male,
all
yeah.
the shitty things that can happen in life are disproportionately impacting males, biological males who identify as males. And she has not addressed any of those concerns. So, like, she just isn't earning my vote.
Yeah, well
Look,
said.
I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, it's a serious. I mean, look, and the thing is, it's political malpractice. I mean, look, I thought it was really interesting when in her interview she said, I don't think, she was asked by Bret Baier on Fox News, do you think Trump voters are stupid? She said, I would never say that about American voters. So that's so interesting. Like, in other words, the implication is you would never say that in public, right? Presumably. You wouldn't make like that mistake, like the basket of deplorables, like your mentor, Hillary, would say. But the point is, that's not the proper answer. The proper answer is American voters are not stupid, whether they are Democrats, Republicans, or anything else. That's the proper answer.
Yeah, and that's the essential problem with the campaign, is that at the core, it's very divisive. It's playing on these social identity group factors, and it's just, look, cumulatively, as I mentioned the word cringe, if Obama wanted a puppet, as he implied, it really reflects very poorly, not just on Harris, but on sort of the whole establishment, or whoever it be that's backing her. It's because when they see this, when the American public see the full glaring stupidity, frankly, and gosh, just I don't even know, flat-footedness of Harris. The fact that they see it, look, people aren't stupid, as just said. They know that there are people behind her who see the same thing and cannot think, oh well, this is a sullen, this is an amazing woman who's just having repeated moments of cringeworthy lapses in intellectual capacity. I mean, just the ability to even think on your feet or speak on your feet.
Well,
so it implies to the American people, see it as like, how dare you try to foist this fool on us and think that we should have to accept it and believe your lies about her.
Not all women are going to vote like me. I'm not voting for her because we share the same anatomy. That's not enough. Sorry. But we do have clips of that horrible interview she did with Bret Baier last night. So let's talk about it.
Let me just say
go
real
ahead.
quick that I think that, look, it comes down to how strong is the anti-Trump vote or of people who are on the margins of the anti-Trump vote, or sort of in that middle, who thought that Joe Biden was an acceptable alternative, say in 2020. That he's competent, he's been around, we know him, he's a known factor. Even with I don't think enough got out about his growing dementia at the time. It was obvious, but I think there had been enough momentum, enough rigging, enough other factors involved. But with this, it's going to come down purely to how many people hate Trump enough to throw the country down the tubes with Kamala Harris, because she's just so deficient.
Forget Bernie Nation, because Bernie Nation is voting Kamala Harris the same and supporting her the same as Dick Cheney.
They voted for Biden.
No,
only
that party
0.2% vote of the public voted for Howie Hawkins.
I'm going to be consistent. I'm consistent with my values, and I greatly opposed Dick Cheney and the whole Iraq War and all of that. He orchestrated all of that. Paul Wolfowitz, all of them. They are now over there supporting Kamala Harris. That is enough for me to say no.
Yeah, and the fact that nobody's smart enough to say stop helping to Dick Cheney and his people. Yeah. I mean, it's just, honestly, like that shows you how out of touch they are. It's like, what bubble? They actually, I think it's like Obama once said about himself, I actually believe my own bullshit.
Really? Well, let's hear some more from our illustrious vice president with Bret Baier last night.
Immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
If that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
So decriminalizing border crossings, like you said in 2019.
I do not believe in decriminalizing border crossings, and I've not done that as Vice President. I will not.
Immigration.
So
Jeez.
you heard there, her first answer to Bret Baier was, that was so 5 years ago, Bret. Listen, Trump.
Yeah.
Okay.
Forget your lying eyes there, Brent.
Like,
yeah, it's so bad because she's look, people expect you to expound on your answers, not just simply give a terse 2-sentence response. And she's trying to make the case that she's to be president, so we expect more. And obviously, I haven't had the pleasure of seeing the whole interview yet, but that didn't bode well for the rest of it.
It's just such a stupid fucking answer, right? Like, I'll enforce the law as president.
Yeah, like no kidding.
Presidents
I'll live in the White House as president.
Right.
You know.
Presidents
okay,
make
thanks.
the law. I mean, come on, be serious. And they interpret the law and they decide which ones to enforce and which ones not to enforce. I mean, presidents are the law in many respects. What do you mean? It's like, you don't just come in there. You're not a cop. You're not enforcing the law.
Well, she was a prosecutor, right? So she was DA, she was AG. So I think that's her natural inclination.
Yeah,
but I think
every single sentence it depends on what the meaning of is, right? It's like stuff that used to be like ridiculed when he said that. Like, it's iconically ridiculed, back in the 90s. Now that's just normal. That's just every day.
And also her body language, just in that interview alone, shows such tentative, almost tense. I mean, the fact that she's got to face an actual interviewer from the other side, from Fox News, who's, Bret, he may be on Fox News, but he's certainly he is taken after Trump. I mean,
yeah, no, he's good. I think he's a very fair.
He's a good reporter. Like, I see him. I
He
watch
is,
Fox all day long, and he's a gentleman too. And
he truly is. Yeah, he is.
This
He's
is not
really,
Sean Hannity.
One of the best reporters out there, who still has objectivity and will ask the hard questions of both sides. And she just, from just that short clip, she couldn't handle it. It's just it's really
you can see
scary.
it in her eyes too. Her eyes are very, very expressive. As a cartoonist, you always try to figure out a way to get into, a face, and her face is all about her eyes. And when she's happy, they're like laughing, dancing eyes.
And she almost sounded a little bit sedated at the beginning of.
Yeah, that's true. She does sound a little tired.
Tipsy perhaps.
Yeah, there's all those rumors. I don't know that she enjoys.
She talks about falling out of coconut trees and stuff. So
she washes down her Xanax with Smirnoff, or maybe Belvedere.
I think she's just not that smart. I really seriously think that's it. I mean, these are all. I look at all of these interviews. She looks at them as like a threat. You can see it in her face.
Yeah.
I would view every single hard question as an opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so does Donald Trump. If you saw him sparring if you watch the Economic Club of Chicago sit down he gave,
Detroit,
every time I think, well, how could he possibly impress me more? He does. And I'm not saying that as a partisan. I'm like, this man really knows what he's talking. He has a sort of just a force that you think if he's actually dealing with foreign leaders and adversaries, like, this is the guy you want to be.
He's not afraid. That's for sure.
Yeah. And he sticks to that position in a way that's it's not
he is
that he's
afraid
inflexible.
To debate. He doesn't want another debate.
Oh, that's right. He's hiding out with 3 rallies a day.
It's a mistake, though. He should do another debate.
Right.
No, I think they should do a town hall.
Oh, I agree with that.
Well, here's the thing. He said, I'll do another debate, and he offered it.
Together.
With Fox News. And they refused. They said, no way.
Right.
They want another rigged situation.
True. Right. That's fair.
there is actual footage out there now of her talking into her earrings. I don't know if you've seen this. There's
No.
suggestions that those pearl earrings, which happen to exactly match.
This is a
product.
repetition of like the sort of story about George W. Bush during one of his debates where he had
Yes,
some,
I know. Well, that
mysterious
was
square lump on his shoulder.
well,
Oh,
yeah, but I
yeah.
mean, it wasn't like he had something that was visible that you could identify as being
Mhm.
exactly the same style of a product that made specifically as Bluetooth earpieces with pearls and that. And then she's,
Mm.
if you haven't seen the video, it's her talking into, she's literally on her ear talking to someone at the other end of the whatever.
Huh. I have to go look that up now. I haven't seen that. But let's listen to one more. I got one more of Kamala before we move over to Charlamagne the God, because I mean, I guess now she's doing her interviews, but this God, she's just not good at them. Uh here we go. Look.
Exhausted of Brett.
More than
People are
70% of people
exhausted.
tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
Oh, no.
But you've been the person
Come
holding
on,
the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade,
But you're
people
the
have
lever of
become,
power.
but listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, exhausted of Brett.
More than
People
70%.
are
Like that one was my favorite soundbite because
So weird.
he says, pretty much 8 out of 10 Americans say the country's going down the wrong track. You've been VP for 3.5 years. How do you respond to that? Well, Trump has been running for like 10 years for office. What?
There's a
what
good
kind of
answer to
answer
that
is that?
question. If I'm Kamala Harris, I say, listen, when we came in, the country was still reeling from a pandemic. It took us a good year or two to start to dig out of it. Many people are still terribly traumatized. We're dealing with the economic results of that pandemic. We have very high prices. So it's no surprise whatsoever that the American people are not feeling happy. We take, the bus. Harry Truman said the buck stops here. That buck was with Joe Biden. I was his vice president. I support him. But when I become president, I'm going to get to work on day one and work on these problems.
But
That's
remember,
Rall for
Tyler-
president.
That's the solution.
Well,
I
remember,
don't understand
Tyler,
why they can't. Why she just
look,
can't
guys,
say that.
She was on The View. I think it was The View or one of the other shows, like shows geared towards ladies. And they asked her if she would change anything from the last, Biden's administration. And she was like, no. So what you're telling us is it's more of the same.
Although she did say yesterday that she was going to, she would be her presidency would not be a continuation of Biden's presidency. So I want to give her credit,
Of course. It's interesting because I think she didn't say that because she doesn't really believe there should be changes. It's because she couldn't think of anything. She's that flat-footed.
Yeah.
I mean, she's that slow on the uptake. And it's just,
and again, there's a solution to that.
And when you notice when she gets
started this, you could say Biden started this, but he didn't finish it. And I'll get to things take time. I'll finish it. There's lots of ways to massage this.
And another thing she does is she sort of slows down and she's like, listen, blah, 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 blah. And she gets that sort of almost a haughty tone to her in response to him, where she's trying, you and I both know it. And it doesn't play well. It comes across as flip almost. And that's not what if you have nothing else, I mean, you can do that on occasion, I guess. But I mean, when it's a full answer, no, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it just looks bad. And this is all, guys, it's all been in the last 70, 75 days since she became the unelected nominee. But then of course she goes on shows like what is it? The Breakfast Club, the one that's hosted by Charlamagne the God.
Yes,
And
yeah, I
this
think
somebody put together a quick little montage here of those sound bites from the other day. Yeah, and Charlamagne is just like this isn't even softball, right? This is like teaching my son to play baseball by going through T-ball. Like he's teeing everything up for her, and the answers are still very weak.
My pledge is, as president, I will work on decriminalizing it because I know exactly how those laws have been used to disproportionately impact
She's done it.
and specifically
She sure does.
Black men. Public defenders who are around those days will tell you I was the most progressive prosecutor in California on marijuana cases and would not send people to jail for simple possession of weed. And as vice president, have been a champion for bringing marijuana down on the schedule. So instead of it being ranked up there with heroin, we bring it down. My pledge is
Instead of being ranked up there with heroin.
Bring it. Really?
Oh,
Vice President, bring it.
You
We're
can
all
see that
speechless.
she's very different. Like, just looking at her eyes, her face, her mannerisms, she's very different when she is on shows like The Breakfast Club or on shows like The View, where she knows it's not hostile territory. They're going to lob little softballs at her and not push back on her because they already support her. It's friendly territory. And she knows that. But to a lot of Californians who lived, I mean, I was a grown ass adult in my 30s when she became AG, and I lived in downtown LA. I knew a lot of people who were impacted by effectively the continually modified 3 strikes law, which was, I think, Prop 36. That's again back on the ballot this year. When she was AG, she exploited what was left of the old Prop 36 to do exactly what she just said she didn't do. She did exactly that. And then she went after truant mothers who were disproportionately, disproportionately women of color who are working like 2 or 3 jobs, who, kids cut class, especially when you get to high school. But, she went after those women because when you're a prosecutor at the local district attorney's office, as you know, Tyler, you're a lawyer, that every win for the DA, every low-hanging fruit win is still a win. And you want that, like, for your weird scorecard. And that's what she did when she was DA, she was the prosecutor, she was the attorney general. That's exactly what she did for years. And then she got swooped up and became the senator from California. So, for her to go on The Breakfast Club with no pushback, none on her record, that is bullshit, because Californians like me, we know better.
She has the worst prosecutorial impulses. If you've, look, I have real problems with prosecutors for what reasons you just sort of laid out, which is that they view everything as, putting notches in their gun belt. Everything has to be a victory. It's not a matter of, justice has to be done ultimately. And in her case, I don't know if you saw the clip of her saying, it was years ago, she says, I could, with the wave of a pen, essentially ruin somebody's life or put them in serious jeopardy, at least for a period of time until the charges are dropped. And that is such a warped view of the law and of role of the prosecutor and of the relative, the power that you're operating with when you're a prosecutor, which carries just as much, in my opinion, a duty and an obligation to justice than it does the powers that you wield with the wave of a pen. I mean, it was really chilling, actually, that she has such a distorted view of the justice system as being sort of an arbitrary, these are just powers that the person, whoever holds the office, wield to their own liking and for their own ends and to someone else's destruction and of innocent people. And, the fact that she's obviously lying about her record it's all so worse than cringy. It's chilling, really. I mean, when she's not being cringe, she's chilling, in my opinion. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, 2.5 weeks, guys. I'm actually afraid. I'm actually afraid this year.
Well,
I know
see
that's a
what
weird word
happens.
to say, but
Well, okay, very quickly, because we have to wrap. But why are you afraid?
because if she
Of her
wins,
being president. Oof.
yes, if she wins and she's literally as dumb as we think she is, like that, how are you going to go toe to toe with a Xi Jinping or a Vladimir Putin? Or, I mean, like she's a war hawk, as is the rest of her party. That's terrifying because that's going to lead us to World War III. But then I guess I won't have to worry about my son not getting into college because he's, not the right color or not the right gender. I won't have to worry about it because I live within, the blast zone of the White House. So,
Yeah, what she
so
says
there's
is
that.
that
Problem solved.
what she
Yes.
says that the most aggressive forces of things like war, censorship, totalitarian treatment of the population, racial division are all
Yes.
going to be in
the
in
convention.
the catbird seat, right, in overdrive.
At the convention,
And
Tyler, she in
she'll
her
do
speech.
nothing. Yeah, she has nothing in her in terms of a moral sense to stop any of it, much
The
less
moral
the strength.
compass is broken. The moral compass is broken
I
there,
think it's a
and
judgment
Californians
issue.
have
Even more.
known that.
It's a
Californians have
judgment
known that for a
absolutely.
long time.
Don't be
No,
provoking. Don't be provoking. I mean, you know what? The job number. They always say that the number one job of the president of the United States is to protect the American people. I would say the corollary to that is don't start wars, and any wars that exist, end them and bring them down for a soft landing if you can.
Well, I mean, George Washington said that, as well as JFK. He did it in a more 20th century
And there's only one
terminology.
candidate who's saying such things in this race, and it's not her.
Well, there's
Yeah.
two. There's Jill Stein too.
Well,
Well,
yes.
yes. I mean,
Tyler Nixon, thank you for joining us on our very first time.
Thank
here
you,
on the
Tyler. It's always fun.
TMI, Ted Manila Information Show.
A lot of information, right, Tyler?
Lots of
absolutely. And I'm honored to have been your first guest, and I hope you'll have me back again.
And we were honored
And
to
I hope
have you, and we
next
look forward
time-
to speaking to you again soon.
Next time when you're on with us, I hope you're at your home. So, because you have a cool little studio set up at your home studio, I would love to have you on the screen with us because I think a lot of listeners have heard your voice for a long time, but they don't actually know what you look like. So, next time.
I bet he looks
We'll
like
make
he looks like one of those guys in the Kamala ad.
Oh my God. That's
Yeah,
awful.
the Yule Gibbons carburetor. Eater. All right,
guys.
Have
Tyler.
a
Thank you
great
so
week.
much
Thank
for
you,
joining us.
Tyler.
Tyler Nixon is an Army Infantry Veteran, counselor at law, constitutionalist, advocate, writer, technologist, critical historian, extremist in the defense of liberty. All right, Manila, take it away and close us out.
Okay, guys, that was our very first episode. Obviously, Voice of America, thank you for supporting us and watching our show. DOJ, of course, thank you for probably downloading this and putting it in the digital archives for mine and Ted's permanent record, like the principal's office, right? This is going to go on our transcript, Ted. But you guys, I can't stress enough, even to you guys at the Voice of America or State Department, whoever's watching, I can't stress enough how independent, how sadly, pathetically independent this is. We're selling advertising space. So if you're like, you want to advertise, hit us up, man. Like find us on Twitter or whatever. I'm dead naming, whatever. But seriously, this is a completely independent project of anybody and everybody. This is me and Ted doing our own thing because we just have stuff to say and we enjoy doing it. And so we hope if you guys find value in whether it's the laughs or the politics or the whatever, please do consider subscribing. Hit that. If you're watching on Rumble, in the Rumble chat, there's that subscribe button at the very bottom where you would be typing in your comment. Love or hate us, or whatever. If you just support independent voices, it's a $5 a month subscription.
It only works when it's live, just so you know.
Yes, it only works while it's live. It only pops up during the live chat. So if you guys wish to see us continue doing this, because we can only do this for so long before we will have to, I don't know, I probably have to schlep over to wherever and do some crap editing job somewhere, Ted, because that's my background. I'm a print editor by training.
Yeah, that probably would be me too, editing. I mean, the only fans thing I don't think is going to work for me.
Yeah, I'm not sure my husband would appreciate an OnlyFans thing. So I don't know. I don't know what else I would be doing. That I've been doing media for over, at this point, 20 years. And this is what I love, and this is like,
and you're good at it.
I can't imagine doing other things. I've done other things because I've had to, because media is not a steady job, as we know. and even more volatile at this point, at this stage. So if you
over 95% of American journalists have lost their jobs over the last 30 years. I mean, that's crazy.
30 years.
Yeah. I mean, basically there is no, I mean, look, I'm microcosm, right? Editorial cartoonist since I've been syndicated since 1991. Started out the San Francisco Chronicle features, doesn't exist anymore. Then moved on to Andrews McMeel Universal. I've been there since 1996. So I'm an old timer. When I first went to my first editorial cartoonist convention, there were 450 or so guys there, mostly guys. And I went very recently to another one in Montreal. That was for all of North America, bear in mind. The one I'd gone to with 450 was just for the US. That there were only 28 people or so who were cartoonists, including part-timers. So as I say, it's not a convention, it's a coincidence. There's none of us left, really. I mean, I'm a young one, you know, I'm 61 years old. I'm a young cartoonist. This profession has been completely gutted. Journalism has been gutted, but it's migrating. It's not like journalism's going away. It's not like cartooning's going away. It's just, we're going through an insane period of disruption. And, you know, obviously, so we have to beg people to give us money.
It's true. This is all viewer supported. You know, we hope maybe eventually, I don't know, we'll get like that blue emu ointment, Ted, for our old joints, because we're all like middle-aged here, you and I, right? So like, you know, I drank my water wrong, and now I sprained something in like cervical disc 3 or something. Maybe we'll get some kind of support that way. But in the interim, we hope that you guys will consider supporting us with a $5 a month subscription by clicking that button below in the Rumble chat to help support the show, so we can keep doing this and building up this weird little coffee crew community. It's the morning still for the West Coast folks. It's almost afternoon for us here on the East. So we thank you so much for migrating over from the now defunct stations that Ted and I worked at and finding us here and being with us. It will get better once we actually have time to set up a show, because this is like 48 hours slapped together. This is the best we can do for the time being. But it will get progressively better as I promise, as we figure out the kinks.
It'll get tighter.
Yeah.
Little nips. The little nips and tucks make a difference.
Yes, they do. So again, this is not a reboot. This is brand new, unfunded programming. So we thank you guys for being here.
10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through every 5 days a week.
Yep.
We might take
Monday
an
through
occasional
Friday
day off because, you know, whatever. But for the we'll let you know. And you can stream it, right? So even if you miss it, you don't have to be here live.
Yes. So thank you guys for being here with us for this inaugural show. And thank you, Putinbot Gaming, for moderating the chat. You guys, please go check out that independent gaming channel as well. It's a small indie creator. Go check his stuff out.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And yeah, he's wonderful and
a really good person.
Really great person. And he gives fun commentary while he's playing. And Ted, you as an artist, you would appreciate this. The game that he plays the visuals are beautiful. So, but he gives fun commentary about politics or whatever while he's playing video games. So please go support Putinbot Gaming by doing a sub or whatever there, a follow, thumbs up. Also on YouTube, Putinbot Gaming. And YouTube doesn't really like him because of the name alone. The algorithms don't like him. Imagine that. So, all right, guys, that is going to do it. Ted and I, we're going to tighten up the show as we steam out all the little wrinkles here. So thank you guys. That is going to do it for us. Ted, I say adios, amigos. That's what I do. I'm from California. Like, deuces, adios. We'll see you guys tomorrow with a great guest. Should I tell them who?
Nah, keep it.
No, this is.
Or tell them. I don't know.
It's a great international.
I can't stop you. You've got no boss now.
Fine.
I'm not the boss of you.
That's true. That's true. I won't spill the beans yet. You guys will have to tune in because it is a great international guest who if you guys watch alternative media, you'll know immediately who it is. So you'll have to tune in. I got to leave it on a cliffhanger. What can I say? So I think that's the way to go. All right. Adios, amigos. Hasta mañana. Bye.
Wow. Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone. See you back tomorrow. Thanks so much.
Bye.
This is the ending, not the last. It's of episode 1.
It's
Episode
yes.
1 of the TMI
For
show.
as long as we can afford to do this for free, Ted.
Yes, but please support us. Bye.
Bye.